Welcome back to another episode of the Florida Retirement Podcast. I'm Kacey, and today we are going to dive into a fascinating but often overlooked topic, alternative investments. If you are looking to diversify your retirement portfolio beyond traditional stocks and bonds, then this episode is for you. Stay tuned in. And joining me today, of course, is our host, founder of SWAN Retirement Strategies, Murrell Winter. He has helped countless clients navigate the world of investing, and he is here to break down for us what alternative investments are, why they matter, and how you might benefit from them. So, Murrell, it is great to see you.
Yep, great to be here.
Well, I'm excited to get your insights today because I know this is a topic that you are very passionate about. And, you know, I hear the term alternative investments thrown around quite a bit in financial conversations, but I think a lot of people aren't exactly sure what that really means. So let's start with the basics, Murrell. What exactly qualifies as an alternative investment, and how do they differ from your traditional stocks and bonds?
So when it comes to alternative investments, it is very misunderstood by the public because it is not really talked about. You know, when it comes to news stations or conversations, you know, you're always hearing from your rich uncle or your old college friend, you know, about these special investments. But today I'm going to go and break down alternative investments, what they are, what are the pros and cons. So
perfect.
When it comes to alternative investments, they really fall out of the traditional stocks, bonds, and publicly traded real estate investments out there. So they are alternatives to the standard investments. Key differences: one is less liquidity. Usually they're more difficult to purchase and they're more difficult to sell. But the reason that people go through that extra step or layer of complexity is because many times they have different risk return profiles than traditional investments. They could have much larger upside and maybe have reduced downside risk. Every alternative is going to be different, but it is worth you considering if it's right for your profile and your retirement portfolio. Yeah, and then the one other thing is it's usually not as correlated to the stock market. So if the stock market is crashing down or it's falling very fast, alternative investments could also be that stable part of your portfolio and a great way to diversify.
Got it. So, Murrell, if I'm an investor and I've been sticking with the basics my whole life, moving into alternative investments might seem a little intimidating to me, but it sounds like the big advantage is being able to reduce risk by not having all of your eggs in one basket. So why should investors consider adding alternative investments to their portfolio?
Yep, absolutely. So when it comes to alternative investments, there's really three key aspects that people want to take in consideration. Number one is diversification, right? All people throughout their career, they've always heard, hey, let's put their money into the 401k plans. Let's do a portion in stocks and a portion in bonds. But that's really what people kind of read off their menu of investment options when it comes to their retirement plans. In retirement, you do have more available options to you. One, by doing alternative investments, you are diversifying your portfolio. Number two, there are options to create more income, generate more income for you in retirement through alternative investments. And number three, you can access unique growth opportunities. So something that I'm going to talk about later in this episode is going to be a company that most people have heard about, is a company that is very large and growing a lot of traction in the news. So the company is called SpaceX. It is a privately held company. It is not publicly traded on the stock exchange. As you know, that it has had some amazing success here recently with Starlink, which owns all the satellites that are orbiting the world. And they have a lot of great ideas moving forward. So that is one of the alternative investments that people are interested in. And that would be an example of a unique growth opportunity.
Got it. All right. Well, those are all really great points. I know a lot of people who are nearing retirement and are worried about market downturns affecting their savings. They have worked so hard for decades, and the last thing they want is to see a huge portion of their nest egg just disappear overnight because of a crash. So if alternatives can offer some stability, then that's huge. But I imagine there are some misconceptions about alternative investments. So what are some of the biggest ones that you've come across, Murrell?
Yep. So just like I started off this episode, I was talking about how there's a lot of misconceptions, and two of the biggest ones that I see. Number one is a lot of people say that alternative investments are too risky, right? And number two is going to be that people think alternative investments are only for the ultra high net worth or the super wealthy.
Right.
Both of those are not correct. So when it comes to risk, there's actually some alternative investments that have far less risk than the normal stock market and the normal bond market. So alternative investments could actually be that anchor to your portfolio, meaning that it is going to stay stable while everything else is shaking. The second thing is when it comes to only for ultra wealthy people, that misconception that only the 1% have access to these deals. Really, there are many alternative investments that you don't have to have any net worth requirements. There are many good ones, alternative investments that are really good, that you do have to have $1 million net worth or a $5 million net worth. And that's really just because of the regulations around the space. But keeping in mind, both of those are debunked, and more than happy to answer more questions.
Well, I think that's really encouraging for our listeners to hear. Now, Murrell, can you break down some of the most popular alternative investments like real estate, private equity, hedge funds? Can you break those down for us?
Absolutely. So we could go through each of these different strategies, each of these different options for alternative investments. Number one, real estate. A lot of people throughout their lives, they've bought and sold real estate. So people think that it's a great investment. And over the past 3 or 4 years, since the COVID crash, real estate has been a great hotspot for a lot of people. But my fear is that there are a lot of retirees that are calling in saying, hey, I'm going to take out a whole lot from my retirement accounts and buy this rental property. It's going to be the best thing ever. Typically, when there's a fad like that, you want to be selling the thing that's getting so much attraction and getting so much hype. Usually that means that there is a bubble in the market. Not saying that real estate is going to crash, just saying that you might not get the best rates of return with that strategy. Second one is we talked about private equity. And private equity is exactly what it sounds like. You are owning equity in a privately held company, right? So you have ownership in a privately held company. And that's how simple it is, right? For a quick example, if you went down the street and you saw a lemonade stand and a bunch of kids were operating this lemonade stand, you could offer them to buy their business, and that would be private equity, right? You are buying a privately held business. So in that same regard, there are some great private equity deals out there. There are also a lot that you should stay away from. Hedge funds, which are the next option, those hedge funds, their goal is to reduce people's downside risk of the markets. Unfortunately, in my experience when researching hedge funds, I've found that a lot of hedge funds are too risky and they also have too much in fees. Okay. So that's something about hedge funds. When it comes to commodities, though, those are like physical goods like gold, oil, agricultural products. These are all great for hedging against inflation because commodities typically keep up with inflation over time. You just have to be an expert in that space. You don't want to all of a sudden go out and buy pasture land because you're going to be a cow farmer or a rancher and not know exactly what you're doing, right? So you want to make sure that if you are investing in commodities, that you know the game plan forwards and backwards and you have some experts on your side. And then the last option is cryptocurrency. So digital assets that are, people are buying and selling all the time. The big story about cryptocurrency is that people are wanting this cryptocurrency movement to become the next monetary policy throughout the world, that people can send money to whomever they want to at any time, day or night, and have very little transaction fees. Who knows what's going to happen with this whole play, but the most attractive part of cryptocurrency in that industry is the blockchain technology. If the United States or other governments can adapt to that blockchain technology, I think that would be a great outcome for civilization as a whole. But those really are those key ideas around alternative investments and what attracts a lot of people to invest.
Well, so it sounds like there's really something for everyone depending on your risk tolerance and your goals. I love that because I think people often assume they've got to go all in on one investment type. But from what you're saying, there are many ways to incorporate alternatives in a way that's going to fit your personal financial situation. But Murrell, what about the lesser known alternative investments? Are there any hidden gems out there?
Yep. So of course, there's so many alternative investments out there that people aren't going to know which ones are good or which ones are bad, right?
Right.
So really the good ones that I see out there, in my opinion, are one, private equity, getting into a deal before it goes publicly traded, because there could be a lot of upside once the public is able to invest in a deal like that. So private equity would be one that I would give a green check mark to. Number two would be option hedging strategies. So if people are fearful about the markets, if they're concerned about huge volatility over people's retirements and their portfolios, then option hedging strategies or structured notes would be a great option to look into. And then the third one, just like we mentioned before, would be farmland and timberland. So any of those commodities that are a little bit more stable, have good rates of return over time. You're not shooting for the moon, but you're happy with, those good rates that are good for people's portfolio. The ones that are bad, though, the alternative investments that I would not recommend too much would be, number one, hard money lending or private credit. There's just too many times throughout history that those have gotten hit hard, and a lot of my clients, they don't want to go to court to fight over some hard money lending that they might have done to someone, or some litigation financing, or even collectibles. So, collectibles, they're very attractive. A lot of people, they like collecting watches or art, but, it's only as valuable as what the next person is willing to pay for.
Beanie Babies.
Oh, yep.
Snow globes.
Yep, flowers, everything throughout history.
All great ideas. Now, Murrell, I love a good success story. So before I let you go, can you share one about a client that you helped create big returns through alternative investments?
Yep. So I can't offer any, exact information, but there's two stories that I'd like to provide. Number one, SpaceX, right? That company that I was talking about before.
Right.
One of the largest privately held companies out there, year over year has been growing at 74% per year. In my opinion, has a great story and a great long-term opportunity. That's something that a lot of my clients are very excited about. It's not every day that you can invest in the biggest and the best rocket company out there.
Right.
Also, one of the largest contractors for the United States. Number two story is the 12% strategy. So there was a husband and wife that they weren't sure if they were able to retire. They didn't know if they had enough income. And so we were able to do some research and find this 12% strategy for them, which is an alternative investment. This 12% strategy was able to offer them 1% interest per month, and that equates to the 12% per year, and that's why it's called the 12% strategy. That 1% per month was able to provide them enough income to go ahead and retire with confidence. So very excited about that and being able to offer that to more and more clients. We're always looking for opportunities out there. Anything that we could help our clients with, we're on top of it. But those are two specific stories that I like sharing.
That's incredible. And it really sounds like with the right strategy, alternative investments can play a big role in a secure retirement. And it's all about finding those smart ways to keep your money working for you so you can enjoy more life. Murrell, this has been an eye-opening conversation. I think our listeners will really appreciate all the insights you've shared today. And if they did and they want to know more about what you and SWAN Retirement Strategies can do for them, what should they do? How can they get in touch with you?
Yep. So the easiest ways to connect with us, number one, they could simply Google SWAN Retirement Strategies. They'll be able to find us online. We have many great 5-star reviews from happy clients. They could go to our website right there on Google. They could submit their information so then we could reach out to them, or they could simply just call us at 941-271-9005.
And that website is swanstrategies.com. From there, you can find all the resources that you need to get connected with Murrell and his amazing team. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Florida Retirement Podcast so you never miss out on valuable financial insights. We will see you next time. Thanks, Murrell.
You got it.
We are an independent financial services firm helping individuals create retirement strategies using a variety of financial and insurance products to custom suit their needs and objectives. Investment advisory services offered through Second Half Partners, LLC, and SEC Registered Investment Advisor number 163454. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Second Half Partners, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and/or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstances. Annuity guarantees rely solely on financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Murrell Winter, FL NPN 19081242.